So we're still on the hand throttle right now. I'm just waiting for it to warm up and so it can take control of its own idle speed. I don't want to do any carburetor adjustments or anything else until it's at or close to its operating temperature. So before we do anything, first thing I want to check is ignition timing. I'm on #1 spark plug, picking power off the top fuse, ground off the engine. Right now I can see it's about 5 degrees after. Timing on these is done at 6,000 and we're looking for 35 degrees at 6,000 RPM. So with one of these timing lights, I can dial my timing up to where I want it to be, and I'm going to use my TDC mark. So we are right on 35 degrees. So see if you can catch the tack at the same time.
Yeah, I can.
It's right on 35 degrees. So maybe if we zoom in, you can see the mark, because I could see it really clearly. So next step is I want to check my balance. I've undone just one of the throttle links for right now, so it's not hanging up, and this one is nice and free. Nice down that side. Hair low on that one. Hair low on that one. Actually, if we bring so on this cylinder, we are slightly low. I want to bring this line up closer to the 5. If we compare it to the front cylinder, it's actually pretty close. It's just a hair on the low side. And this is the only time you want to use these air bypass screws, is when you're just a little low. Go. Check the back cylinder. I'm going to bring the back cylinder up as well. Okay, so that's got all of our cylinders operating at the same airflow. I'm a hair high on my idle, so I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. So I'm hovering just under 1,000, which is where I want to be. 850 to a high 950 is fine. My airflow is pretty much perfect, right at 4.5 kilograms per hour, which is generally what I'm looking for. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to pop both of these off, lubricate them. I'm going to bring my hand throttle up. I need to check the side-to-side balance while it's under load. So that's what we're going to do next. So when I lube these, I like to use a little bit of copper grease, because if the grease moves its way out, it will still have some lubricating qualities to it. And it doesn't need a lot.
I've seen you use wheel bearing grease too.
Yep. So with both of my throttle links connected, they're both loose. We're still at our 4.5 and 4.5 on each side. So now I'm just going to bring the hand throttle in. It doesn't need a lot of RPMs. 11 to 1200 is fine. We want to measure the flow side to side, and then we may have to adjust our links a little more. So 5 3/4. 5. So we need to adjust this link up a little bit. You can see the flow rate here. It's 5.5, which means this link is pushing down more than this link. Okay, 5.5. 5.5. After we've made that adjustment, we need to recheck that we're still balanced at idle. 4.5. 4.5. What we don't want is the link that we adjusted being, because we have to make this link slightly longer. If it's too long, it'll open the throttle at idle, in which case we need to balance the adjustment between each side. That means I may have to shorten that rod and lengthen this rod to make it work back at idle. But everything looks good. Good throttle response. The next step is I need to put the air filter back on so I can adjust the fuel mixtures. Alright, so the reason why I put the air filter on to adjust the fuel mixture is because it will make a slight difference to airflow. So it's a good idea to adjust your fuel mixtures with the filter assembly in place. That's how the car is going to run. We also haven't checked our oil level yet, but running this engine for as long as we have is getting it up to temperature. 9 quarts of oil is completely safe for what we're doing here. We'll check our oil level as soon as we're done. So when I'm doing this fuel mixture, a lot of it is feel and listening to changes in the engine. I'm leaving the tach on so we can see some differences in RPM, but it's very, very small, and it takes a little bit of time to do this and do it well. Timing light off, carburetors are adjusted. You want to go pretty quick on this when you're adjusting them. The longer it idles, the harder it's going to be for you to set that mixture. So with our engine oil, we're just going to pull the stick, wipe it, and right now we are right on the very bottom of the stick, just barely. So normally between this mark and this mark is 1 3/4 quarts. So I just put in a quart of oil, and our oil gauge, you can see how it's just hovering down below the mark. These are a good indicator. Don't ever trust them 100% because they do fail and can fail. Always want to do a dipstick reading, but this will tell you how close you are on that oil level. So right here we can see we're down just a little bit. That's probably only 1/4 of a quart, maybe a half. We don't want to overfill it, so I'm just going to put a little bit in, and then we can confirm with our gauge how accurate it is as well. And our gauge looks like it's right on the full mark as well. So the only thing I really have left to do on this car is change the V-belt, and we're going to put some new front struts in the front. We do need to road test it. However, outside it is snowing today. So not really the best day to road test this car. Still got to do some tire pressures and check wheel torques, basic stuff like that. But everything back here in the engine is done, valve adjustment done, oil change done, carb tune and balance done, timing check done. So it's pretty much ready to wrap this one up and send it off to its owner in the eastern United States. When I check tire pressures, I always like to use a gauge like this. And what I'm looking for in the front on these early cars is 29 in the front. This one's a little bit low. It's coming in at 27. And on the backs, I'm usually looking for 34 on the back. And this one's coming in at 29. So what I'll do is I'll overinflate the tires, and then I'll let them down with this gauge to the exact pressure. So the first step is to overinflate. Okay, so I'm overinflated, and right now I'm at 34. And that's 29 right there. Make sure you put your tire caps back on. And 34 in the back. So when you do these, you want to have a good look at this pulley, make sure it's not worn in the corners. These will tend to rock. And then the same on the flats here on the alternator fan. They'll tend to wear on these pressure points right here, in which case you're going to have to replace it. So here's our old belt, and these are the Kontiki aftermarket ones, and you can see we got some cracking, and the belt we're going to put on is the genuine Porsche belt. We've pretty much gone to just using these wholly and solely. Even though these do fit and do work, and we've used them for many, many years, this belt is actually truly designed as a shiv belt, whereas this one is designed as a V pulley belt. And the two differences is a shiv like this has an adjustable, and this belt walks up and down it. And what you'll notice is the factory Porsche belts will fit this pulley a lot nicer, so the entire edge of the belt is used against this pulley, versus the Kontiki ones, this one's worn into it. When you put a brand new one up, the fit just isn't quite as good. So using the Porsche belt does make a difference. So normally I'll start with 2 to 3 shims on the inside. This one's got 2 to begin with, so I'm going to drop a third one on. And I need to get down past here, and one of the problems with this, when I was pulling the belt out, it didn't want to come out because the last person on the exhaust hanger, they put the bolts in backwards. So this bolt here is sticking out a lot further than it should do. These should be reversed and around the other direction. And the same with these. The head of the bolt should be here and the nut should be over here. So I'm going to have to undo these bolts one at a time, because this is the exhaust hanger, to get them out of my way, because we can't fit the belt past the bolt without destroying the belt. So I got the bolts switched around, and now a V-belt drops in the way it's supposed to. So you can see how something so simple as just a bolt being put in the wrong direction by somebody that's not familiar with the cars can make such a big difference to doing a job. Okay. So we can see that the belt is tight enough that it will rotate the crank, and I got all my plugs and everything in, but I still have deflection on the belt. The other thing you got to be careful of is the shims on the outside. You want to make sure that they stay concentric with the outer washer. If they don't and they slip down, then you'll pinch it, and then this pulley won't be on square, and so it'll cause it to wobble when the engine's running. We're just going to go for a quick road test. Even though it's very snowy, which helps smooth the road out and keeps the dust down. Because the sender's probably trash.
The wind noise picks up at speed like unreal.
Well, we're at 55 miles an hour, and here's your wind noises. All the target roof seals need to be done.
Window doesn't shut.
Well, it's...
Oh yeah, no shut.
This is as high as this one goes. And this is the roof seal's bad, and the connection here is wrong.
That's wild.
This is pretty normal for a 50-year-old car. It drives pretty straightish, considering how worn the tires and the shocks are. Good acceleration, no vibration from the motor. gear shift is really loose. The bushings are all pretty worn out. That's how much play it's got. But the transmission shift's nice. Yep, no hesitation, no hiccups, nice and smooth. Needs a new speedometer cable. You can see how the speedometer is flickering, and I can hear the cable in there. Yeah, that could be the gauge or the sender.